Hey guys, Scott here again. I welcome you to a kind of a special kind of Trappist Abbey beer video with a beer dissection. So I just want to talk to you specifically about how to navigate a video like this. To try to make things as concise as possible, I've kind of bookended a few videos on top of each other. So you're obviously watching the intro right now. Following this will be about a 15-minute video that will be a standalone video on my YouTube channel, but I am going to be putting on all my Trappist and Abbey style videos. So I explain about monastic brewing history, Trappist and Abbey ales and the differences and things like that. That's roughly 15 minutes. If you're looking just to get to the what is segment about a particular Belgian style Trappist, feel free to fast forward if you've watched that 15 minutes already, because it is there standalone also on my channel. At the end of that 15 minutes, I will go into several minutes of explaining the particular style, anything from Belgian double, triple, Belgian quad, or Belgian dark strong, whatever the Belgian style may be, or Trappist style may be. And the tail end of that will be bookended, the specific beer dissection of, say, something like Westvleterlen12, which I'm excited to talk about, or a triple, a form of triple or double, or any of the other Trappist beers or Abbey beers, or just Belgian beers in general. So again, guys, hopefully that kind of helps you guide yourself through the next several minutes. Feel free to watch what you like, but definitely after this intro, if you haven't seen it already, if you are a beer geek, you may get something out of my monastic Abbey and Trappist beer history and explanation. All right, guys, I'm gonna let you guys go on to the next segment. Hey guys, Scott here again. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do a little segment about monastic brewing as well as Trappist beers. If you're looking for the beer dissection version of this video, I may put on the tail end of this video about Belgian doubles, triples, Trappist ales, Orval, things like that. So if you're looking for that, if you hang in there, I'll get it to, probably piggyback it at the end of this video. But I just wanted to just devote a little time about monastic brewing. So if you're watching this solely by, without a beer dissection at the end or a beer analysis at the end, hopefully you get something out of this too. So monastic brewing, has been around for hundreds of years. Even going back around the 8th and 9th centuries. And St. Benedict had put a lot of those early monastic breweries, put a lot of the rules on how they needed to be self-sufficient. And that led to brewing their own beer to sustain themselves during Lent, making cheeses, making a lot of other food products, even things like the Oath of Silence that, a lot of the early monks had to do. So actually monastic brewing has been around. Modern day Trappist brewing, which I'm going to get to in a minute, is something that's reasonably new, even as early as, some of the styles of beer, at least in the early 1900s, even though some of the modern day Trappist breweries have been around since around 1820s, 1830s. So hundreds of years ago, 8th, 9th century, you had all these monasteries. A lot of them, were in the Belgium area, modern day Belgium area, as well as the Netherlands. And again, I'll get to more specifics of where they are currently these days. So they were brewing for sustenance as well as a lot of other products. Around the 11th century, a branch off of some of the monasteries and monks was the Cistercian order that became kind of the Trappist monasteries of today. But they went through some hard times too. We had the French Revolution, I believe, in the late 1700s. You had, 2 world wars. During all those times when, especially going back to the French Revolution, with France being right there between, Belgium sitting there between France and Germany, they ransacked, burnt down these monasteries. They rebuilt them, started brewing again. Then you had World War I. The Germans were known to steal the mash tuns of the monasteries and burn them to the ground. So they had to rebuild and restart a few different times through their history. And, you know, that's why, like, if you go to your beer store now, when I do my videos about Trappist beers, a lot of times people think like, oh my God, these beers have been around. You know, they see Belgian triples, singles, quads and stuff. Oh, hundreds and hundreds of years. No, those beers back in, we'll just say the 11th century, 5th century, even going back further, they were been brewing beer, but the styles of beer have been a lot different than they are currently to this day. So, you know, so they would brew it still for sustenance. They would make a lot of other products. And even to this day, I mean, I haven't been to Belgium myself, obviously I've been to Europe, but, you know, they make other products to sustain the monks and things like that. So again, the French Revolution, the 1790s, you know, kind of ransacked a lot of these monasteries and Trappist breweries, again, from the Cistercian order. Then, you know, World War I, the Germans were known to steal the mash tuns to be repurposed for military use. So the monasteries, you know, a lot of the monks had to move to certain different regions in Belgium or different areas of Europe, and they would resurface again. Then you had the, you know, first, again, the Second World War that kind of came down. Something to mention about the mash tuns, too, is even in the early 1900s, you know, they would, like English beer would be taxed on original gravity. Belgian brewers would be taxed on the size of their mash tun because of the amount of beer they could brew. So a lot of them would have but they wouldn't be taxed on the second mash tun, which they would use wheat. So they would use a lot of wheat in their beers, too. Kind of fast forwarding, you know, after around 1919, there was the Van der Velde Acts, which kind of put a restriction on Genever, if I'm pronouncing that properly, which was kind of a precursor to gin or kind of similar to gin. And that after that was implemented, there was a lot, kind of not an uprising in Belgium, but they wanted to brew stronger beers. That's why a lot of times now with a lot of the styles, Belgian double, triple, quad, a lot of the Belgian beers, alcohol percentages is very high because they were trying to brew higher strength beers because they were kind of, if you want to say, upset about banning gin and a lot of spirits back then in the early 1990s. So, you know, going back to around the 11th century, and you had your Trappist monasteries, and they would rebuild after World War I, World War II. Currently, there's about 170 Trappist monasteries in the world. And most of them are in Belgium. There's some, I think there's one in Italy, La Trappe in the Netherlands. And about 13 of them currently, and I think it's 12 now because I think Aachen no longer has a monk kind of overseeing things. So there's about 12. But you have Trappist breweries like Chimay, Westmalle, Westvleterlen, Orval, which brews their own beer. Again, there used to be Aachen. The last surviving monk died, which kind of leads me to, so there's roughly 13. There was just one in Massachusetts that closed down because called Spencer. I think they did it for more economical reasons. So there's still roughly 13 Trappist breweries in the world. So there's about 170 monasteries and there's 13 Trappist breweries. Now, why don't they all are breweries? Well, there's certain rules now that they have to abide by to be a Trappist brewery. One is the brewery has to be on the grounds of the Trappist monastery. The other thing is the monks at the Trappist brewery must either be brewing the beer or overseeing the beer. And the third big thing is that all the proceeds, even though the Trappist breweries are not really in big competition with each other, that's kind of weird because, you know, we're used to breweries and businesses trying to compete with each other. All the proceeds need to either support the monastery or the surrounding town in that it supports. So all the money needs to go to, say, if you want to say goodwill. So there are specific rules. And on the beers, there'll be a little, if you're at your Belgian beer store, or not necessarily Belgian beer store, your local beer store, you'll see a little emblem. I think there was a lawsuit either with Orval or could be Westmalle even too, that, you know, sued and made it so that you would have that delineation. Now, I should mention that even though there's roughly, give or take, 13 Trappist breweries, there are other abbey breweries, we'll call them, that are secular brewers, which non-religious, that will make the styles of Trappist breweries, but they can't call themselves Trappist. St. Bernardus is an example of one of them. Some of those, they make the ABT12 if you're in your beer store. So there's other ones that will make the styles, but they can't call themselves Trappist breweries. But they'll have the theme of being like a monastery or religious. They'll have like a monk on front. And I did a video on Christmas sales. I got the monk wearing a Santa hat and stuff like that. So they'll brew the similar styles to that. So again, Chimay, Westmalle, Westvleterlen, Rochefort, La Trappe, Ockel. Some are Ockel. I think one of the last monks died, so I think they lost their Trappist delineation with that. So again, they've gone through a lot of, starting with monastic brewing hundreds of years ago. Now, some of the modern day beers, like from Westmalle, a lot of them were only started around the 1920s, 1930s. I think the double came out first, D-U-B-B-E-L, and it's pronounced that way, double. Some people want to call it Dubel or triple. It's pronounced triple, it's not tripel. Those beers actually were an early 20th century, 1920 something, I think, came out. So, you go to your store, you watch some of my videos, and I talk about different styles, the Belgian quad and Belgian single and double, that a lot of them, those are newer styles of beer that had come out. They weren't, not to say they didn't match a little bit, but they weren't recipes from, 600 years ago. So again, you can see how these monasteries and then, the Trappist Cistercian order branched off, went through a lot of hard times with the French Revolution, World War I, World War II, issues with their mash tuns being stolen. The monks actually buried their mash tuns to try to hide them from the Germans in the between World War I and World War II. Now, general things, and again, at the end of this video, if I piggyback, I go into more history. I'm going to be going into more history on each style and talk about each specific style, like single or extra or double. But generally, there's a single, a double, a triple, and a quad. Now, there's nothing double or triple about any of it. There are increasing alcoholic strength, so it is more grain being used, but with these styles that you see in your store, there's nothing kind of double or triple about it, but they are higher alcoholic strength. There are more grains being used. So the single, the interesting thing is the single, which is sometimes classified as the extra. There are some beers that are only brewed for the monks, so they're not actually brought out for the mass market, or more lighter style beers. They're kind of pale straw to gold to maybe a light amber. The double and the quad, or sometimes called Belgian dark strong, are darker beers. They're like brown, not necessarily black like stout, but they're darker beers. The single is roughly 4 to 6% alcohol. The double is about 6 to 7.5% alcohol. And the triple is about 7.5 to 9.5% alcohol. And the quad is between 8 and 12%. So, you can see that there is an increase. So those are the main styles. To get to the alcoholic strength, a lot of them, they'll use Pilsner malt. This is just general things. I will dive into the beer dissection and the specific history of the styles later. But they will, use Belgian candy sugar, light or dark, which gives it a lot of their color. And the thing with candy sugar is the yeast will ferment out all the sugar and just produce alcohol, but make a lighter bodied style of beer. That's why if you've ever had any Belgian styles of beers, a lot of them, you don't realize they drink it. You're like, man, they taste like, seltzer water, or at least the body of like seltzer water, but they're like 11% alcohol, 10% alcohol. You got to be very careful with them. So they use light candy sugar. They use dark candy sugar, depending on if they're doing a single, a double, a triple, or a quad. That's usually something that's pretty consistent. A lot of the Trappist beers will use a specific yeast that will give phenols like peppery or clove-like phenols, and esters like orange, like in the triple will have like an orange kind of taste to it. I don't make it sound like you're drinking orange juice, but like kind of a, if you really analyze it, they'll have kind of an esters from like an orange or light citrus type of thing. And so those are some similarities that you'll see in the beers. And again, I'll dive into them deeper at the end of this video. If I piggyback a style of beer at the end of this video, that's what we'll do. So as you get an idea, I have a passion for, Belgian beers as well as, monastic and Trappist beers. And there is a lot of interesting history. And even though I'm giving you a roughly a 15-20 minute video about it, you really could dive into it a lot, head first into it and get into a lot more specifics about it. So again, kind of a very arduous journey from monastic brewing from hundreds of years ago to the modern day Cistercian order of Trappist breweries, with being about 170 monasteries. Not all monasteries have breweries on site there. And again, you will see other Belgian styles or Abbey style beers that are not considered Trappist beers. And again, it's more of a appellation, I guess, if you want to call it that, like some of your wines in Italy and Champagne region in France to be called a Trappist brewery. So guys, hopefully that's good enough information. If you are staying for the beer dissection at the end of this, I will tag it at the very end. Hang in there. I may look a little different when you do that. If not, it'll be at the tail end of this, or I will, if you just wanted to get some basic information about monastic and Trappist beers in general, without going through that, I will see you on the next video. Okay, guys, have a great day, and until the next video, I will see you there. But definitely go out there and try some of those Trappist beers, okay, or even some Abbey beers. Okay, take care. Hey guys, Scott here. Just welcoming you to the continuation of a special segment I'm putting together for Trappist, monastic, and Abbey brewing. You may have seen the intro, watched or fast forwarded through a 15-minute segment that I did on the history of monastic Trappist. If you haven't seen that, by all means, if you want to kind of go backwards, that's fine. But I want to get right into the what is segment of what is Belgian dark strong or Belgian quad. It is one of the higher alcoholic strength Belgian style beers, similar to the double, the Belgian double. This is going to be, instead of being 6 to 7.5% alcohol, it's going to be more like 8 to 12% alcohol. It's going to still be very dark amber, copper to almost a light brownish color. It's going to have very low bitterness because it's not going to be very heavily hopped like many Belgian style beers. So maybe just enough to balance a little bit of the sweetness. The aroma is going to have like dark fruit smells like raisin, plum, fig. It's going to have like Maillard or like caramel, light caramel smell. So kind of like a cooked sugar type of aroma to it. It's going to have, because of and as well in the flavor profile, it's going to be very similar. It's going to be, rich Maillard reaction, fig, rum-soaked raisin. You're going to have alcoholic warmth with this. Fig, plum, dark fruit, cherry kind of notes to this style of beer from the Belgian dark strong and the Belgian quad. They do use, again, Belgian yeast for this, so you will expect in the flavor profile also to have peppery phenols, maybe some. Sometimes people get some banana or some esters in this yeast strain also. And again, remember, the Belgian candy sugar is really going to be helping boost the alcoholic concentration to this. It's going to be highly carbonated. It's not going to drink like a 12% alcohol beer because of the candy sugar. There's not going to be a lot of residual sweetness to it in the sense, or body to it. It is medium body, but it's going to drink like it's more like 4% alcohol versus 10 or 12% alcohol. So kind of medium body, medium to full bodied, but it is going to taste a little bit drier than something that is typically at 8-12%, like a barley wine. Some common examples of the Chimay Grand Reserve, which is like the Blue Cap, Rochefort 8 and 10, some of your Trappist styles, as well as Westvleterlen 12. I will be doing, if you are staying tuned at the end of this, I will bookend the specific beer dissection video. I do have a Westvleterlen 12, which is my pride and joy, that I'm going to maybe either have the tail end of this video to explain it, and or one of the Rochefort's 8s and 10s, or possibly even an Abbey style, the St. Bernardus ABT 12, which is also a Belgian dark strong. Okay, guys, so just a little bit about Belgian dark strong. If you're looking for a specific beer dissection, hang in there. I'm going to bookend the specific beer dissection at the end of this video. All right, guys. Hey, guys, you probably just finished up the segment on my What Is Style on Belgian dark strong. Maybe some of you have already watched the 15-minute history that I discuss about monastic brewing, Trappist, and Abbey brewing. If you were interested in that, rewind back on the YouTube channel or find the standalone video on there. But right now, I just want to dive right into the Belgian quad beer, Belgian dark strong, that I have to discuss with you, which I just discussed in the What Is segment of it. And this one is Westvleterlen 12. Now, Westvleterlen 12 is a Belgian dark strong, or we call Belgian quad. It is probably the most highly sought after beers in the world. It's ranked, and this is why I'm doing a special segment on this, 100 points out of 100 points on Beer Advocate. Most beer circles on internet and will say this is the best beer in the world. But it is, again, like I said, it's very highly sought after and very difficult to get. For many years, even before I got into studying for beer and working towards the certified Cicerone, this is a beer that I craved for many, many, many years. Even in Belgium, it's difficult to get. The Westvleteren Abbey, or excuse me, the monastery, the Trappist monastery, they're not really open to the public very much. They don't like a lot of visitors. You have to call in like in a lottery system to even try to purchase this beer. So it's very difficult to get. It's not the most expensive beer, or I should say it's only about 20, I think, something euro. So it's not the most expensive beer to get, but you just can't get your hands on it. You can't just walk into your local beer store and just see it sitting on the shelf. It's just one of those types of beers. You either have to get it right from Belgium, or go to the Abbey. And like I said, there's guys that they do a telephone lottery, and you have to pull up in your car and show your driver's license. So even in Belgium, it's supposedly extremely difficult to get at the Abbey, or excuse me, at the monastery. So that's why it was such a special beer for me to be able to get this year. I've discussed it. I have to give, first of all, props to two people in my life that were very observant. One is, I won't use last names, but Bob. I probably put a post on. I had kind of a tough year. And I maybe made a comment about how, if I was going to have one beer, Westvleterlen 12, which I've never had in my life. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I get a delivery of my Westvleterlen 12, which, again, I'm going to be opening this up at the end of this video. I'm going to kind of piggyback it at the end of this, or bookend it at the end of this video, and you'll actually open the beer, and we'll discuss the beer. But he sends me this beer from Belgium. It probably costs more to ship the beer and more time to get the beer than the actual beer itself. And then roughly a couple of months later, a friend, Mark, that I went to high school with, who's also a home brewer, he's probably been a home brewer longer than I had been, and another beer geek, he understands. I think he was actually in Belgium, and I guess he arranged to have 2 more bottles shipped to me directly from Belgium. So a beer that I was never able to get for the thoughtfulness of a couple of friends. I get 3 bottles this year that I was able to. I've already consumed 2 of them at the filming of this particular segment of the video. And I have 1 more, again, I'm going to discuss and open. So again, this is a very exclusive beer, difficult to get. After I consume this one at the end of the video and go through a beer dissection with you, I probably will, may never get it again. There are other styles, you know, Chimay Blue Cap, Grand Reserve, Rochefort 10 and 14, the Abbey style, St. Bernardus. So there are styles that fall into Belgian Dark Strong that you can get your hands on. They're pretty easy, but not Westvleterlen 12. So, you know, I literally was choked up when I got this beer. And those of you who don't know me, those that know me know what I've gone through the last year or so. Those of you that don't know me probably like, what's he talking about? But this Westvleterlen 12 was quite a shock. So I have to kudos to Bob and Mark, and I have a Westvleterlen 12 chalice that I will be drinking out of. So again, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the specific Westvleterlen 12. I may look a little different when I actually open up the beer and discuss it and discuss the profile. If you want me to know more about it, rewind a little bit here on this video or look for the book-ended one that I talk about actually Belgian Dark Strong and what to expect from it. I will probably resurface a few of those things when I open up the bottle, but I need to give a shout out to Bob and Mark and just the overwhelming nature of getting these beers from them, and so people appreciate how hard it is to get this beer. I'm looking forward to opening up for you guys. Okay, until the next segment, guys. Hey guys, Scott here again. Most of you are probably watching this video for one of a couple of reasons. One is some of you have gone through a compilation of monastic Trappist Abbey beer videos, starting with an intro video, about a 14-minute video on the history of monastic brewing, Trappist Abbey brewing, kind of a little bit about Belgian Dark Strong, which is what we're going to be talking about today, as well as kind of a little background on how I obtained this beer. So this is going to be a Westvleterlen 12 beer dissection video. You could be watching this as a standalone video possibly too. I'm really paying a lot of attention to this beer because many of you know that this Trappist style of beer, this Westvleterlen 12, is ranked as like the 100 of 100 points. It's the most sought after beer in the world, probably. If you don't believe me, I do discuss this earlier on in the compilation video. I do have to give another quick shout out to Bob and Mark over the course of 2022 here, who gave me, sent me one bottle and or two, depending on Bob or Mark, who it was a very sought after beer. It's very difficult to get. And I was privileged to be able to have 3 this year. And I have my last bottle here sitting here that I'm going to open up for all of you, and we're going to discuss it and drink it together, or at least I'll be drinking it on camera right now. That's why I'm spending a lot of time with this. If you fast forward through some parts of the video, that's fine also, but for my own enjoyment, I'm doing a long compilation video here. So you're either watching this as the tail end of a big compilation, or I may post this as strictly a standalone beer. So what are we talking about here? Westvleterlen 12. Westvleterlen is one of the Trappist breweries. There's roughly 12 or 13 breweries. There's about 160 to 170 Trappist monasteries in the world. Again, I'm not going to dive too much in the history because I have that probably preceding this, or you can seek it out very easily. But Westvleterlen 12 is, and I have it right here, okay, and you can see the cap, okay, which a lot of people save, as well as the ridge on the bottle, okay. So this is probably the pinnacle of beer, is Westvleterlen 12, and we're going to discuss this in a little bit. Like I said, I hate to keep repeating myself, but I want to make sure I'm being very thorough. If you're watching this as the compilation a little bit earlier on, I talk about Belgian Dark Strong or Belgian Quad as a general theme. Westvleterlen 12, there are other styles that match it. I don't want to say closely, but they're very similar. The Chimay Blue Cap, which is also a Trappist beer. It's the Grand Reserve. Rochefort, I think it's 8 and 10. Could be 12. And then there's a couple others. And there's some abbeys, which are like St. Bernardus, ABT 12. And some of the monasteries have actually exchanged yeast over years, so that's what we're looking at. So this one, which brought tears to my eyes, and again, I'm going to shout out to, I don't use last names on YouTube and or Facebook, but Bob and Mark, you know who you are. One's a good friend here on Long Island, and the other is I went to high school with. He's another beer nerd. And I do talk a little bit about that on the prior videos if you're interested, or prior segments of the video that I bookend together on this style of beer. So it is a Belgian Dark Strong or Belgian Quad. The range usually is about 8 to 12% alcohol. This is going to be a yeast dominant beer. It's going to have a lot of dark fruit flavors and things like that I'm going to talk about in just a second. So without further ado, I may pause this really quick just to make sure I don't have a mistake with pouring it, but I am going to pour it into my Westie or Westvleterlen12 goblet or chalice, whichever you want to say it, courtesy of Mark. So it's one of those beers that, again, I'm paying particular attention to my Scots Rathskeller, because I don't know if I'm going to ever be able to get this in my hand again. Again, if you're interested on why I'm talking like this and waxing poetic about this beer, either seek out my compilation of monastic Trappist and Abbey style beers, specifically about Belgian Dark Strong, and I will talk more about it. So I'm going to just pause quickly to pour this thing, and then I'm going to discuss it more to you guys. Okay, guys, I'm in the process of pouring my Westie 12, my Westvleterlen12 Trappist beer into my chalice that I showed you just before I cut away. Remember, there are rules about Trappist breweries. They need to be brewing on the site of the monastery, has to be overseen by the monks, and all the proceeds must go to the Trappist monastery, needs and everything. So again, as usual, this is going to be extremely highly carbonated, okay? And as you see here, I got a nice tan head. It's kind of a reddish hue, light amber, medium amber color. It may look a little darker on camera, okay, which is typical for the style. Again, remember, this is going to be a yeast-dominant beer. Hops are not going to be very important. Actually, the IBUs are roughly 0 to 10 on this. So you do not want to, you're not going to be getting, any type of, fruity, passion fruit, mango, pineapple type of hop aroma. These mainly for being a preservative to the beer. Again, very highly alcoholic strength. So let's take a whiff of this. Okay, so you can see the color. Again, it's not black, it's kind of a dark amber. And let's take a smell. Oh, wow, unbelievable. So you immediately get those dark fruit aromas. Black, currant, raisin, rum-soaked raisin, without a doubt for this one. I've mentioned rum-soaked raisin a lot of times with aromas because sometimes you get that, we're going to get some alcoholic warmth here. This one sits around 10% alcohol. They use dark Belgian candy sugar to get the color, okay? They're not really using any dark malts to this. This is kind of, and remember, the yeast are going to eat that candy sugar almost 100% to produce high alcohol, lighter body, and but not a lot of residual sugar. So it's going to be a very dry beer for the alcoholic strength, but it's going to give those dark fruit flavors. So prunes, figs, rum-soaked raisin, like I said, you get a little Maillard reaction. It's going to be, definitely malt forward with this beer. Again, really not much, hops to speak of, but you get definitely get that malt forward, fruit esters. You're going to get some peppery phenols, which I get slight pepper, maybe a little clove and banana, okay? Again, remember banana isoamylacetate, which is very high in German Weissbier, Hefeweizen. You can get it in some of the yeast, and you're going to get some esters with this too. Okay, cheers, Prost, whatever you guys use. This is like unbelievable. Wow. Oh, unfriggin' believable. Now, I've had 2 this year, and I've never had them in my life. And again, going back to that video, I can explain why this beer is just so substantial to me in my life. Still highly carbonated, even though I poured it roughly 10 minutes ago. Tremendous ester quality up front. So you get that, currant fig, dark fruit, highly malty, but not like strong Maillard like Doppelbock would be. This is insane. Again, highly carbonated. This is roughly 10%. The style's 8 to 12%. It's not drinking like that though. It's still kind of light body because of the candy sugar. But as I'm getting the aftertaste, it's kind of like light to medium body, not even close, more light bodied than medium bodied. But as I sit there with the mouth feel, there's no really, I don't get any alcoholic warmth, even though it's sitting around 10%. Very low bitterness. Hops is not very important here. Like I said, they probably use Styrian Goldings, maybe some other German noble hops, just to try to balance a little bit of the sweetness. But let's not split hairs here. This is not a hoppy beer at all. Oh God, it's unfriggin' believable. I'm trying to get the fruit. There's like maybe a little black currant, like a cherry, dark kind of dank cherry type of flavor. Dank is a positive thing. But you definitely get that maltiness from it. Again, very low bitterness. I think roughly less than 10 IBUs for something like this. But again, you can see it in my glass. I mean, this is just a tremendous treat for me. Again, sorry about the pause here, but maybe some brown sugar with a little molasses mixed in as far as on the flavor. I mean, they're not using, well, they're using candy sugar, dark candy sugar, not necessarily brown, our typical American version brown sugar. Kind of a subdued molasses on the back end, but not like a Winter Warmer or Samuel Smith's Tatty Porter. A beer like this, I would never drink with food. I know in Belgium they're probably drinking with food. This one and the remainder of this, I'm probably just going to enjoy on my own. But again, guys, if you can ever get your hands on this, and I explain how difficult it is to get this. This is like A+++, okay, beer. Again, I don't want to repeat myself if you've watched the prior parts, but if you like this style of beer, it's out of this world. You can mimic it a little bit, like I said, with the Chimay Blue Cap, the Rocheforts, what's the other ones? Rochefort 8 and 10, St. Bernardus, ABT 12. But I've had St. Bernardus many times, and I will get that more frequently than this because this is so hard to get. But this with just the flavor profile alone is just completely insane. This is why I've spent a lot of time on my YouTube channel compiling all these videos together. So again, I want to thank Bob and Mark this year getting me bottles of this. I do elaborate more on this. If you guys can ever get this, this is a super treat, especially if you appreciate Trappist beers like this and like myself. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this compilation of videos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it is going to be posted soon, depending on when you're watching this. But I will post this as a standalone video also, the Westvleterlen12. Sometimes we call it Westie12. So other than that, guys, hopefully you have a great day and you understand why I wax poetic about this beer many times. And I may be trying to get more as time goes on. All right, guys, have a great night. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of this bottle here. Okay, I have a Trappist style Westie12 Belgian dark strong. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.